Good morning,
And you're good to
Kevin.
go.
Good morning. Sorry about that. I had a conflict and I forgot that I was hoping I could have logged off the other one sooner. So,
No worries at all. So we'll get started. Maybe I'll start it off and then we'll need to appoint a chair between the board members and then I can pass it off to the chair if that works. So we're just a couple minutes past 9. It's March 25th, 2025. We're here for a Woodlands Hearing Board meeting, specifically for the hearing board to consider a Woodlands application 001-2025 filed by the applicant 3771 Queen Street Inc., which is represented by Mr. Banting. First item of business is to appoint a chair.
I think Dave would be good chair.
The seconder. And are you agreeable? Okay, so Councillor Ferguson will be the chair, and maybe before I pass it off to the chair, we'll just do a quick round of introductions before we begin. So I'm Olivia Leger. I'm the GM of Corporate Services and Solicitor and Clerk for the county. And Annette Major, she'll be acting as the secretary, essentially taking notes for the meeting. And then we have Deputy Warden Agar, who's Mayor of St. Clair Township. Mr. Payne, who's our County Woodlands Conservation Officer. And then Corinne Nada, the manager. Councillor Ferguson, who's also the Mayor of Brook Elvinston. And then Warden Marriott, who is the Mayor of Skillen. I'll pass it off to you.
Good. Thank you, gentlemen. So to start with a walk through we went through with presence. Thank you. Went through the application. So the application 2A, there are two parts to that. So can we the application I think is straightforward. Can we bring up the application map? So that'd be possible. See it.
Lisa, are you able do you have a copy of the report to bring up the map by any chance?
Yes, just one moment.
A Van Bree drainage was sent yesterday. Even if that one came up, that would show it, what we're looking at.
Lisa, there's an attachment in the report that was sent by Van Bree Infrastructure, and there's a map attached to that correspondence if you could bring that up. Page.
Just one moment. I had to download it. Just one sec.
No worries. Thanks, Lisa.
And just for a moment, though, while you're doing that, we're going to go to 2B and just point out that there was no public meeting and that it hasn't been done, correct? Good. Correct. While we're waiting for that, we'll ask Brad a little bit on that if that's funny to Brad. So will there be 11 acres left after the 5 acres comes out, or is 5 part of the 11? There'll be 6 left.
The 11 left. Plus or minus. I don't have that number in front of me. Yes.
No, I just want to look at the map. It's not broken at acres, but we did see numbers in there. And the Walker Drain looks like it goes to the west to east and then turns south, or sorry, turns north.
I think that's effective. I have my directions turned. I'm thinking the other way. So you're saying comes east over the field. Yeah, so it comes here, goes, yeah.
Yeah, that's for outlet somewhere, the Walker Drain.
Well, it actually goes the other way. That's why I'm confused.
Oh,
the water goes.
The water flowing down.
Correct.
Okay.
That's why I was confused. But
in the north-south. Correct. And then goes west.
Yes.
And is the Walker drained through the grassed area? Cement tile, or is it plastic? What's it composed of? The opening area.
Don't know. I don't know if I remember. I think it's cement. I'm not sure.
There, thank you. There's the map up there.
Thanks, Lisa.
So the red area is outlined, and the right hand side of the red if you brought, if the map was in front of it, show a cleared area in the woodlot, and that's where the drain will run.
And just to be clear, the drain's already there, right? It's not a new drain. Okay,
No,
it's just, you said where it would run, so I was making sure it's clear that,
No, it's there already.
yes.
So is everybody, so it's actually Jeff, myself, and here to be clear on that, where we're talking on that map. And that'll be municipal drain when you talk of Walker Drain.
Yes.
That's its name. Okay.
Yes.
So the notice of public meeting has been held, the report and the recommendation. The recommendation is to allow this, to go through there, to read the recommendation. And he's gonna put in another property at 201, 9 point some odd acres to go in. That is, I double checked Tim yesterday, that will be in floodplain, Tim. So it could not be built on its future.
Yeah, it is covered by the generic regulation by the Conservation Authority. So it is erodible land and such, so, it would not be approved by the Conservation Authority for housing as it stands.
Because right now it could be zoned agriculture or residential in that area.
I did not double check the zoning of those two areas. But I did, confirm with the Conservation Authority.
It's zoned restricted agriculture and tied on with the hazard designation. One of the things the pictures don't show is those areas are 100 feet, maybe 150 feet lower than the land that's cultivated on the top. Called table lands and the valley lands, but it's significantly lower. So I don't know how you'd ever build it.
Or just making sure that somebody questions us, that we want to make sure that it's straightforward, that it's all in the open, that it will not, it can't be built. So it's actually good to retire that land.
Right.
And if you look at the Conservation Authority going through in the last year, they got a big phosphorus program out there now. That would help with that program at this point.
It's also probably important, Spot, to mention those two circles in the valley lands are currently in active agriculture production today.
And they'll be coming out.
Correct. As a plant tree.
So from Jeff or Kevin, any questions, Jeff or Kevin, on that?
No, not for me.
Now, we've gone through the field assessment. It's a D in correspondence for Van Bree Infrastructure, which shows the drainage map. I don't think we need to bring that up, but we have it in front of us. Tile, and there's some elevations in there with that. So at this point then, Brad, I'm gonna call upon you if you wish to, any further remarks upon this.
No, I think it's a great summary. What you had said at the beginning, it's a pretty straightforward application, taking out a small piece of land, replacing it approximately 2 to 1 in hazard lands. And straightforward. Tim and I worked together to figure out how to move this forward, and here we are.
And I did find out we can allow the public to speak, so if you'd like to speak at this time, or identify yourself for the record, please.
It wasn't fair to do that, but we're concerned from the Lupton Wildlife perspective of the crown coverage that we have within the county. We're second lowest in the province, and we're concerned with our carbon dioxide output for our area. The crown coverage we have doesn't even handle that. So we're concerned about the maturity of the trees, the story, all that is going to be gone. It will take probably 3 generations for the understory of our type of generation. For the trees, the larger trees, I'm not sure what kind you plan to put in and whether they do well in the floodplain. Some of the trees will not do well in the floodplain. Tim, you know that. They don't do as well. I'll put it that way, as well in the floodplain. And then in the floodplain, they're slower growing. Some of the trees are. Some of the sulfate earlier do well there because they really take up the moisture. But so we're concerned about it disappearing over almost 3 generations, and we'll lose some plants and understory that will not come back. So we're concerned about that. And is it necessary to take the whole thing? I guess really the 2 questions I had was what type of trees you plan to put in, timeframes here. But also, is it necessary to take all of that to accomplish the drainage?
I'll let Tim answer first on the species.
Sure, so certainly as part of the reforestation that Mr. Zanting will be doing, he'll be consulting or someone else that is knowledgeable of the area, picking species appropriate for the, and trees will be purchased through a reputable nursery and planted to quality. There's an assurance of survival assessments that happen after the trees are planted to ensure that there's survival, and if it does fall below, then there is a requirement for Mr. Zanting to build, bring the stock back up. So certainly native species that do well in the floodplain will be that are chosen.
And correct you to market the tonic with for the piece to come out.
So sorry, the question was about do all the trees need to come out in order and the answer is absolutely not. No, they don't. But the key is then we would be cutting through that piece approximately 3 or 4 times, and there would be no trees replanted. You do not need to have any replanting requirements for tiling, farm tiling, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. So we would end up with 5 acres of 3/4 acre sections, and there'd be no replanting. So Tim and I talked about that. We felt this was a good solution. It makes very limited sense to have a 5 acre piece cut into 4 pieces of bush, and then we get 2 acres to the 1 planted. So this seemed to make sense.
I think I'll point out too, is when you put in the other small pieces, the way it is now, that it's not really an interior woodlot. By putting in the other piece down that creek flats, in the long term, it will take 3 generations, it will be started to become interior woodlot for different species of birds. I'm on my own property doing a tree planting this spring. They're bringing some of the species I may not normally, which are native, maybe not native to my farm. You may see some species go into that area that with the climate change, start maneuvering like a Kentucky coffee tree and some of the others you might not normally see. But it will actually move in new species that are native to the general area. Actually, that's a good thing with that. So at this point then now, I'm gonna ask for the question on the recommendation with the conditions.
Is it possible for me to ask a question?
Sure, yes, please. Identify yourself, please, for the record.
Certainly. I'm Mary Martin. I'm current president of Lambton Wildlife. How's my sound quality?
Excellent.
Awesome. I have a question about the environmental impact study. I haven't seen the results of the any study, and I'm just wondering if it exists.
Jim,
There wasn't a requirement for this one to get an environmental impact study.
But it's in the application? It's stated on the application that a removal of woodland of this size does require an environmental impact study?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily required, and based on the assessment that was done by myself, it was deemed that there wasn't a requirement to do an environmental impact study on this.
So Mr. Payne, I noticed that the assessment that you did was done on January 17th. At that time, would you be able to tell if there's any snakes or salamanders or turtles on the property?
Generally speaking, we don't necessarily need to do 4-season surveys and that type of information for a woodlot application.
Would there be any impact in the volume and water quality of the downstream neighbors to this property once the woods are removed?
I think with outcome of farm tile drainage, it will bring capacity into that tile drain.
And is there any implication for downstream neighbors?
So are we doing question and answer from the public on this, or are we at the application and having them give their comment?
Yeah, typically you would just be speaking to the application and the substance of the report.
I'm wondering about the environmental impact, how I could get the information from the environmental impact without the study.
I think Mr. Payne had addressed that in his initial assessment. He determined that the environmental assessment impact wasn't required.
Okay. May I ask the property owner about his plan for the new planting?
I think at this point, this is what Tim said, question and answer. You could make a statement and this is not to put the people on the corporate grilling at this point. We have discussed that the new property has been addressed, that it will stay into trees, and it's not an area you can build on. So I think that part has been addressed.
Okay, may I make a statement about the new property?
Yes.
The new property that is going to be planted, I am concerned about a management plan to deal with Phragmite, simply because it's a very wet area. And we know that we have a problem with invasives. Also at the corner of Lakeshore and Townsend, there is a new, well, it's not new, but another invasive plant that most likely will be transferring into this particular area. And mitigation for removing of invasives while the new planting is underway would be considerable effort. And I am hoping that that has been considered in this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, I will call a question for the recommendation with the conditions laid out. All in favor? Kevin, so Jeff is yes. Kevin is yes. Carried. Thank you. Now, do we need a motion to adjourn at this point? Motion to adjourn, please. Jeff, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.